there's another gentleman's there. He's above my head, and I don't know what he has, but he has it stuck to my neck because the blood had pooled down there. And he asked me later on, he's like, "Do you remember saying this at all?" And I was like, I don't remember talking to you at all. So apparently I'm laying there and he's pushing on it like that. And he said, "You grabbed my hand and you said, 'That's not where the fucking injury is.' And you stuck it to your cheek."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, well,
Well,
that I was right.
sometimes
It was the cheek."
sometimes you have to be very direct.
Yeah. It's all good, man. But yeah, it's in that situation. It's hard. There are potentially a lot of red herrings. Because there's blood and potentially deformity. So sometimes things look, oh, geez, like that looks like that's it. But it can not, you can be fooled because of the blood, or you can often miss things because you look at the thing, oh, there's blood here, so it looks gruesome, and then you miss, three other things that
Yeah.
are also important because they just weren't as graphic.
Yeah, it's also hard to know how to make a hierarchy of what's more important to treat first when you have zero experience doing it. Because I mean, I could imagine a situation where if somebody was cut, maybe in a few different places, you could assess, well, this is in a little bit more risky of an area, or this cut is deeper or worse, so let's treat this first and then, move down the list. But when it's broken bones and severe burns in multiple places and cuts and bleeding and potentially neck injuries, potentially, TBI, it's like, what do you do first, and how much attention do you give it before moving on to the next thing? And it was a good thing we had that many people there, so everybody could kind of focus on a different thing. But I could imagine being by yourself, so I would not know what to start with. I would just, it's like, this looks bad, let's start here.
So this is a perfect segue to my next question. I'm gonna ask the question, but then I have something to add on at the end. So Adam, while you were waiting for the first responders, did your thoughts wander to TCCC and to March
I
principles?
absolutely did. For the short time I was conscious. Um, it was not in order, I would say, though.
Mhm.
I immediately looked for amputation because I knew that that's where the bad stuff would be. And then focused on the burns. And then from there, I kind of ruled out the others because I was talking, which meant I had a decent airway for now. I did keep in the back of my head to pay attention for like a tension pneumothorax and, see if I start dropping off one of my lungs or something. And then just listening to the way people were talking about the bleeding, I had kind of ruled out that there was no more bleeding and everything had kind of been dwindled down to my arms outside of head and neck injuries. But there's no way me laying on the ground in that position, I'm going to be able to teach somebody how to get the splint out of the kit, make a makeshift C collar, put it on without cutting off my carotids and making this whole thing a lot worse. So just kind of left that one alone. And then I wasn't around very long. And then Bryce had taken over, and then I was, well, I say I passed back out, but apparently that's not true. I just blacked out. Apparently I was still up and I guess talking and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So
So I think that's quite interesting, and I think so. As a point, I think your ability to do that shows the strength of what I was talking about before. In that we go over these things, rote memorization and repetition so many times, so that in those circumstances you fall back onto your training, and then it just becomes automatic. So that's the first point. The second point that I want to make is that so before I was talking about TCCC and ATLS. So they're basically the same thing, but TCCC is like for like an infantry soldier, and ATLS is higher level for physicians and medical specialists. And ATLS, our principles are A, B, C, D, E, which is airway, breathing, circulation, disability, and exposure or extremities. We basically go through the same things that you do, but at a higher level. But because hemorrhage is the number one cause of people dying in that golden hour, we are actually thinking of changing that. The American Surgical Association is thinking of changing our principles a little bit to reflect March more instead of ATL, A, B, C, D, E, because March puts massive hemorrhage first, because the guys who are on the front lines recognize, man, if you could have whatever injury, but if you are bleeding out, like you only have 5 liters of blood, and if you are bleeding massively, you may not be around for us to fix anything else if we don't stop that, put a tourniquet on that now, or pressure dressing or whatever. So there is some thought to changing that to reflect the massive hemorrhage that might be occurring, right? Not to say that airway is not important, and it is still the number one thing for us, but certainly if you don't address that massive bleeding, then you're going to have problems, So
Yeah, and I would say on top of going through, TCCC, I'd always kind of been medically minded. So, but I got out as a staff sergeant. And so I'd been through the NCO Corps. And when you go through the NCO Corps, when you put on your first set of stripes, people now look to you to make a decision and execute and make something happen. And the biggest thing that they harped on was make a decision. No decision is worse than maybe even, a bad decision.
Exactly.
And so I think I just kind of went back to that, even on the ground. It's like, okay, something needs to happen. Todd, that's not it. It goes here. Here's the bag. Take this, put that on. Like, just do some things. And then other people, they just kind of fall in line. Like, oh, shit, okay, I guess we're just doing this. And then things get done.
Well, these are the situations where, like, you don't have the luxury of not doing anything, right? And I say that to people about, like, when I'm in the OR, like, I have a plan. Okay, I'm going to do this hip replacement. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to fix this trauma. That's my plan. And I go through the steps of the plan. But if, for example, we cut an artery or something, and which has happened before, right? Like somebody's got a little bit different anatomy, or you just cut a little bit further. You go, oh, I need to loosen this up a little bit more. I'm going to cut here. You cut a little bit further than you should have. Blood is coming up. You do not have the luxury of going, oh, what do I do? You need to do something. And any decision, even if it's a bad decision, is better than doing nothing, right? And so, yeah, you need to, sometimes you just need to start doing shit. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, right? And then you can sort of evaluate as you go, what was the response to that thing that I did? Was it good, bad? Okay, more of that, less of that, move on,